I might just use
Or
this.
a really good one.
We
Ready,
should just have
steady,
this as an
go.
intro.
I hate talking in front of people.
I hate talking to people and in front of people and socializing in general. I really hate social media. Oh god, I'm recording. Oh no! So we're back by popular demand, not in the same place, but we are back. Possibly under the name Old Grumblers, if I can be bothered.
Was there popular demand?
There was a lot of comments on the last one, I think.
There was demands. I don't know. Popular would be the correct
there
term.
was at least one comment saying that we should talk.
That's it. We're in. That's it. Done.
That's the demand right there. He wants it. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, like, who are we to disappoint?
Anyway,
Top 10 podcast among dogs.
So we're here to talk about the state of Total War, just in general. Obviously, Warhammer 3 is the primary focus, like post Shadows of Change, what's going on, how the play count's been, how have we found it as Total War partners, and, well, speaking for myself, at least, primarily Total War Warhammer creators. A little bit about Pharaoh, because we've been able to play that. We're also not allowed to give opinions, recommendations, anything like that just yet, but just general state of Total War. So, where shall we begin? I suppose it all begins with Shadows of Change, doesn't it, unfortunately?
Yeah, I mean, like, you just said the order of everything we're going to do, so.
Yeah.
Start Pharaoh, it's fine.
All right. So what do you guys think of Shadow of Change? How has the game progressed after that? And what did you guys give Shadow of Change for some kind of score if you did review it?
I didn't give it a score, but I gave it an exceedingly negative review.
Oh.
Exceedingly. The content for me was mediocre, but the price was obviously just obscenely expensive, and I think it's definitely been reflected. Like the review scores for it on Steam are, I mean, just review scores for Warhammer 3 are catastrophically bad. And
what are they right now?
Let me just pull it up. Jamie, pull it up for me. 24%. And if we go over to Shadows of Change, I know Louis, it's bad. 22% Shadows of Change. I thought that'd be low, to be honest.
That's not very good.
Louis, I'm going to take you out.
No, it could be better. I mean, I don't think that... Okay, this might be the controversial take. I don't think the actual content for Shadows of Change was necessarily worse than anything we've already had before. But obviously the price increase was taken very negatively.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually... Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. As I say, the other thing is I think there was just some weird choices in that DLC, particularly at the same time.
Oh, yeah, that was bizarre.
That was actually my review, basically. Like, it's a 5 out of 10 DLC. It's not bad. It's not good. It's got really cool ideas, but poorly executed because everything just became so overpowered, and like the actual focus on every single campaign got really weird. But overall, it wasn't like bad. At least it just wasn't that good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the... Sorry.
Yeah, if you put in like the pricing into it and actually check out like the actual update, because we always like paid for the update as well. Like you kind of, that was kind of factored into it. Every single a DLC has had some sort of major update that's always changed big parts of the map. Like Twisted and Twilight changed all the fancy wood elf locations, put in more wood elves. Gave the rework if people didn't have anything, like I never played wood elves, they could still play like Drake, I think, or could they do that? I can't actually remember if they could have. But
Drake, everybody could have. If you owned the original Wood Elves DLC.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's right. But if you actually like own the original Wood Elves, you could still go back and play those, and you got the rework, and it changed the map some with the new forest and stuff like that. But now we like paid more than ever, and we got like the least content ever. Like there wasn't really I refuse to call those reworks, like that you get a little bit extra for Kislev, like the new cities, how they're like the new settlement types, which are just better than they used to be. And Cathay didn't really get more than the harmony stuff, and the Siege wasn't changed almost at all, except for like some of the schemes. Like those aren't reworks.
No, that was more of a rebalance. I feel like a lot of the focus went into Changeling, and because he does have cool mechanics, they are insanely overpowered. And I'm not as bothered about that as other people might be, because I'm not like, I don't really play the game for it to kick my ass. I know, Louis.
I think that does, in a way, feed into a different conversation about the difficulty of Total War. And because I was thinking about this, and I don't actually think Total War's a particularly difficult game. So I don't think having the changeling be... The only thing that really is overpowered about the changeling is the fact that it's really hard for the AI to actually target him. Like, you're effectively scot-free. You just sort of exist in the world without the AI being able to interact with you. And that's kind of where the difficulty comes from. But
you're like the poltergeist in the first half of any ghost movie, basically, where you're just throwing about shit and scaring people.
Exactly. And in a way, that kind of works for the changeling. Although I would argue that with my changeling campaign, none of the grand schemes seemed particularly grand. When I did the Empire one, that didn't do anything. Nothing happened. Like literally nothing happened. When I did the Southlands one, which moves the Black Pyramids, all that did was move the Black Pyramids. It spawns like 4 undead armies. They immediately died, like literally the turn after they were dead. That was it. That was the grand scheme done. And every time I did a grand scheme, I just felt like there was a lot of hype leading up to it, and then absolute deflation.
Yeah, no, I felt exactly the same way. Like the Black Pyramid one is so unfun. Like moving Norsca as well is also just very unfun. I would say this though, the Ultron ones are pretty cool if you manage to coincide them. So you get like a Chaos Invasion and the Cult of Pleasure coming there at the same time. But in my playthrough, the High Elves managed to like obliterate everyone anyway. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I just feel like with the schemes, because it's like based on theatre, I feel like you should be able to level that theatre, right? As soon as you do your grand scheme, everything should be on fire. That's how that should be.
Yeah, if you're gonna make it overpowered, just like make it insane.
Right?
Why not? What's the harm?
And I don't mind that. That's fine. But I my argument is kind of that Total War isn't a particularly difficult game anyway. And I usually play campaigns on very hard because I think Legendary, although it does make the game harder, it also increases the bullshit in the game to a point where I don't think it's fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I have like I don't know at this point like 9,000 hours just streamed on legendary difficulty, and it's like there's about before this DLC there was one campaign I felt was kind of hard, and the rest were like okay. So for me, it was going from kind of okay to like easy wasn't like that big of a gap.
Yeah. So I think because. So I know there's been a few people talking about like the fact that the factions were overpowered, but realistically, I don't think it matters. I think that's not really necessarily a problem. I guess it can be if you consider that, for example, if you play Ikit, obviously he's got his clan Scryer mechanics, and if you play as Queek, you get more chieftains, which is obviously worse.
That's always been a big problem, right? Because I remember I can't remember in what concept it was said, but basically the normal generic lords ones that you get with the base game are kept kind of simple so that people can just go in, they can play them, and there's not like a bunch of extra mechanics and stuff like that people have to learn. So when the DLC comes out, they get a mechanic, and a mechanic will make something stronger most of the time. Because balancing a mechanic that makes them weaker is pretty shit. As we saw with like the Malice campaign, for example, that's been made easier basically every single patch up until like the very latest ones where they kind of just remove the negatives of it. But otherwise, they tweaked that one to be easier every single patch because it was just awful, basically. Now, the Malice has like other things as well. Like I actually streamed a campaign where we only used Malice for the entire campaign, like from the first battle, and managed to win it.
He's insane, to be fair.
He is just crazy. But that's also like what it's led up to. So it just became imbalanced in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, there's been talk of like the issue with power creep for quite a while. I think this DLC in particular has been like especially bad for it. Like, I don't think Mama Stanky is that good. I would even argue that she's not very good. But
I think
Well,
Changeling's crazy, and so is Wambo. He's pretty strong.
I mean, as a lord, Mama Stanky isn't like that strong, but with the hexes and things like that, she is pretty. She's pretty like omega level threat basically to anyone, because you can just chuck any army away to the other side of the planet.
it's weird that that's probably her most powerful ability, is the ability to literally yeet factions over to the other side of the world. It's genuinely
probably not
hilarious.
the most. Yeah, it's probably not the most powerful one, but it is definitely the most fun. It is one of the most like you really sit there and cackle.
I would argue that it is, because the reason is twofold. One, it gets that army out of your face, and two, the AI won't replace that army because it's not dead.
That's true.
So if you do that like 5 times, suddenly that faction has no army to defend itself with, because they're all walking back from Cathay. So you've got literally probably 20 turns to roll over them.
Yeah, it also highlights a big problem as well with Total War, where the AI will not see other AI, so they'll literally have to walk back, and nobody will attack you. Like you can literally like put in Morathi into Cathay, and they'll be like, "How do you do? Do you have a little stroll around here as well? All right, so you're going that way."
Yeah, the AI is just so dumb, and it seems to be getting worse rather than getting better. Like they added the anti-player bias in like massive spades. This is obviously an old conversation since like the start of Warhammer 3. But they just haven't really done. It doesn't feel like they've done much to fix it. It just feels like everyone wants to get you, and they just ignore everyone else around them. It's so just stupid.
The battle AI is probably worse than ever. I genuinely think. I was playing a Skarsnik campaign, and the ogres attacked me Bark Var and sieged that place several times with several armies. But they would always leave like one army outside as reinforcements, because they were like, we only need one army. So when the other one army was dead, they would just stand outside. So either I could wait it out or go out and take one more capture point, and then they would run in with like 3 or 4 units, and I would kill them, and it would just go on like that. And every single siege would be again with my little goblin. So obviously I couldn't just like strong arm them, because they had an army after that as well. So it just became this like 45-minute affair every single time they sieged that, which was quite a lot.
Yeah, that is a bit. I've noticed that the battle AI seems to be a bit more. You're right, janky than before, and I don't know whether it's this patch or whether it's Warhammer 3 in general. But I've noticed several times they'll just like throw light cavalry at your front line before the rest of the battle line can catch up. It seems particularly worse if they got reinforcements. They don't seem to bother waiting for them. They just charge ahead.
It almost seems like they tuned up the number of reinforcements the AI is trying to keep in the back. Just as fresh troops. That means that they'll just move in on you like 3 or 5 at a time, like Bond henchmen.
Yeah. I'm not saying that the Total War AI has ever been, amazing, but I definitely think it's. I'm sure the guys working on the AI are working very hard, but it does feel that their tweaking is maybe having more of a negative effect than anything else. I remember what was the last DLC we got for SOC?
Chaos Wars.
Chaos Wars, yeah. I remember the Chaos Wars during when you were attacking a city, the AI would like blob its units around objectives, because I guess they thought, the players are going straight for the objectives. Let's get the AI to defend them. But then all it did was defend those objectives, and they would never be at the wall. They'd always be sitting at the objectives, and at the start of the battle, they'd start walking all the way to the wall.
Oh yeah. Like sometimes they would even be like at the very back of everything.
Yeah. I had that as I think it's an undead city where the fight. It's difficult to explain. You'd know the city if I explained it, but there's particularly one section of the wall which doesn't have any towers, so you always attack that section of the wall. But either way, they would always start right at the back of the city, and it would take them at least 5 minutes to walk all the way to the wall. So you had 5 minutes uninterrupted ability to break down the gates and just walk into the city unopposed. And that's now fixed. but I wonder what else they've broken in the meantime.
It seems to be the trend. They like fix one thing and just 1,000 other things crop up at the same time. Like they did the big whatever 0.1 patch alongside the DLC. Like, oh yeah, we fixed this and this, including the kind of thing or whatever it was. There was like just 1,000 bugs that had been going on for way too long. And they're like, yeah, we fixed this, and then you just look and they just broke it in a new, more weird way. It just seems to be a massive, I don't know, like practical joke on us all.
Because the guy couldn't recruit his Croxagore after Chaos Wars, could they? And then they fixed that, and then Scarbrand couldn't recruit demons. Was that right with this patch? They've hotfixed that now, but
I don't know. It's
Actually, no idea about Scarbrand.
Oh yeah, they made it so that he couldn't. He didn't have the ability to build the building.
Yeah, that was
a redundant thing to say. To recruit, I think it was Exalted Bloodthirsters.
Yeah, something like that. So basically, he'd just been locked out of a section of his roster, and I just can't work out how you can fix Decay and then break a completely different faction at the same time.
It's impressive, really.
It is.
Sure.
I wonder if it's like the spaghetti code they're working with at the moment.
I think some modder said that they started implementing like new unit stuff like that in alphabetical order instead of just having it at the bottom of the list. But I don't know how. I've only seen like one instance of a modder telling me that. So I mean, if you start doing that in every single unit and building and stuff like that, it gets into a new order. I can see it pretty easily break. But
yeah, I guess if they are doing that,
the future proofing.
Yeah, I just think they just need to test stuff.
Yeah, the QA is lacking drastically.
And again, I'm sure the QI guys and gals do a great job. They work very hard. I just question how much of that team's time is put to working on Warhammer 3 at the moment, because it's when you get things like when they had the Bretonian update with the damsels. Damsels got their troths, didn't they? But they just didn't work. It's
obviously, like you say, it goes without saying that no hate to anyone at CA. Like the decisions and the stuff that we're talking about that are annoying us is all upper level and people that you can never touch. So never send any hate to CA, as always. Yeah, it's just
always.
The team either isn't big enough, isn't being given enough time, enough resources, enough whatever to look through these things and fix them, or they are finding these things but they're just not getting fixed quick enough because the team that's on bug fixing isn't getting enough resources or people or whatever it is. It's just the resources clearly aren't being allocated correctly at CA for Total War Warhammer. And I don't know if it's you've heard the rumors on Reddit, I'm sure, of like apparently it's just one guy that fixed all the bugs. I hope that's not true, but
I don't think so anymore.
It wouldn't surprise me at the state of the game, but
it definitely goes to show that Warhammer has gotten like so big now that it is impossible for them to actually keep up. There's just so many things that needs tuning up. Because even in with these new power factions, right, with the changeling, Stanka and Juan Bo. I was calling him Juan Bo now, thanks to memes. I'm sorry, but it just goes to show when these factions exist in the same game as, for example, Norsca and Vampire Coast do, that you don't have enough resources to like touch up old factions that we're obviously used to. So that just compounds into this like negativity constantly. We're reminded of playing Norsca and the monster hunt still don't work a year after release once again, and things like that. So they really need a custodian team to just fix stuff up. And I think they don't see the value in that because nobody really has like really touched up on it. But for example, I know Paradox made a forum post about this. That every time they rework something, they sell more DLC and things like that.
Yeah,
because people want to go back and they see new joy in the game and things like that.
Yeah, one great thing, talking of Paradox, they like go back and add stuff to their previous DLCs if like a new DLC is like semi-relevant to it, which is just like the most. It's great. Like obviously there's problems with the way that Paradox structures their DLC and it's not all of the same high quality, but I think they do have a more consistent, a more caring approach at the moment, at least.
For sure, it's definitely more ambitious at the very least. Since I was gonna say it's kind of like playing Stellaris or any Paradox games is usually like a learning circle and not a learning curve, because you have to kind of go back and relearn a ton of stuff because they change so much all the time.
Every update is that's the reason I had my beginner's guide and it was out for a year, and like basically like I would say about 30% of the video was completely useless because of how much the game has changed after like 2 or 3 DLCs that came out in that year. And it's just like it changes the game every single time. Whereas if you look at the game pre-DLC and post-DLC, well, you can play Nakai, but you can't play Scarbrand. There's obviously the 3 new people. Harmony is easy to manage, and that's about it. That's like the only differences that you really notice at a glance. So it's the incentive to come back and play if you aren't buying the DLC, especially because what was the free content in this DLC? I don't even know. Was it the Blue Scribes?
No, A-Cold Hellbrass.
A-Cold, of course. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's just me, but I value legendary heroes like nothing. I don't think they're worth anything.
I mean,
compared to legendary ones, at least.
Depends on the hero, honestly.
Heroes is that you don't see them as the player unless you're playing as the faction that can recruit them.
Yeah.
So it changes nothing in the game, really.
Also, it's like vastly different to like have A-Cold Hellbrass or have Ulrika compared to like Croak or Ariel. Like 2 of those are terrifying.
I love Croak.
And 2 of those are whatever.
I mean, it's a good hero. He's strong. He's a great fighter. You know, put him in my armies. But like just compared to like just free LC, like a free LC faction. Now I know that what's his name? Tic Tac Toe, the lizard guy. He doesn't really have a lot going on for him. He has that I think he has the right that lets him reset his movement range, but apart from that, that's pretty much it. And he has a flying focus, but it's another faction to play as. It's another starting location, another starting units, another specialization to really optimize if you want to be that way. It doesn't have the same amount when you have a legendary hero who is like, oh, I have good stats and possible bonuses to my army, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, like Tic Tac is like you play a campaign, even if it's not a good campaign, at least you get one, which is maybe 10 hours or so. If you want to play Hellbrass, you're going to have to, play one of the dudes that you already played, very likely. And does that really add to have the army comp be slightly different?
Yeah, if you played an entire Kairos campaign pre-DLC and there's a new hero, like, you're really going to play the entire, like you said, 10 hours again, but like with a guy? It's not worth it. And I think you can definitely tell in like player count spikes from looking at Warhammer 3 compared to Warhammer 2. Like Warhammer 2, every DLC was like, it wasn't like peak players, but it wasn't far off.
It felt like we were getting more stuff outside of the DLC.
Absolutely.
Compared to what we're getting with Warhammer 3. I think particularly telling is the fact that they were releasing the Regiments of Renown for all of the base Warhammer 3 factions at like a unit each patch. Which, considering most of them are literally just a recolor.
Oh yeah, recolor with like 1 stat changed. Or an ability.
I always saw those as a peace offering.
It did not work.
Yeah, like a little bit of an appeasement, like, hey guys, just so you know, we know that you're all unhappy with Warhammer 3, but here's some free stuff. Some free stuff for you guys. It's not much, but it's something.
There's a reason that John Peterson has given us this content.
I think that's the problem, though, is that it's such a pittance. It's almost like, well, don't give me anything. If you're going to offer me that, that's worse than giving me nothing at this point, because it seems like an insult to me.
It's like they always like 100. Obviously they don't, but say they always 100 grand and they come by and like, oh, I've got a £1 coin for you. It's like, you got to like buy a scratch card or something. Like at least give you something interesting, exciting. It's weak, definitely.
Yeah. Here's a peasant archer. You guys love peasant archers.
Woo!
These ones have cool bandanas, cooler than the other bandanas.
If anyone's,
I think that kind of goes through into the how much free content have they actually got planned? Because if they're padding it out this much, I have concerns.
Oh, absolutely. If anyone's interested in play counts, by the way. So obviously, Immortal Empires did numbers. That was 120,000. Chaos Dwarves, a little bit lower, 73,000. This DLC was 33,000, which I don't need to tell you is not good. That is as many players as were playing in May, which is, well, a little bit, a couple of months after Chaos Dwarves. Compare that to Warhammer 3, and it's like every single DLC, like we got 70,000 there, 40,000, 40,000, 40,000.
I cannot work out why they. I get that you know, obviously inflation and all that, and fine, whatever. But I can't imagine that selling less for more money is worth it.
Yeah, I think they've kind of DLC to me, and this is, I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, is supposed to be a microtransaction. And you know, microtransactions are like, they're gross. No one likes them. They stinky. But people buy them. They do work because it's a small payment. Say like skins in games. Like a skin might cost like £5. That might seem ridiculous, but you're like, oh, it's £5. You know, even if I quite like this character, I'll play them all. I'll buy a skin. Why not? I like supporting the game, so I'll give them £5. But £20, that is like the price of several good indie games, especially with Steam sales. Like for £20, you could get like 4 or 5 really good indie games if you really played your sales. So why would you spend that on 3 lords? It just doesn't add up.
And I just come round to the weird choices made in SFC. Things like where Yuan Bo and Ostankia were. Because although I get faction diversity, and obviously they've placed some, like Decay starts in Cathay, and you've got Gorst who starts, you know, in the Darklands. But those kind of work because those lords aren't really tied to anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that Decay should be in Lustria, but there's already a bunch of, you know, Listen lords there, so it doesn't really matter where he is.
It works better than Albion.
Yeah, but both Yuan Bo is the administrator of Cathay, so strong tie to Cathay there. And then Mother Ostankia is literally defending the lands of Kislev and is now in Nagarond.
Yeah, those Dark Elves, they were threatening Kislev, okay.
But that's what really this is the thing that really pisses me off, is that the only reason for that, as far as I can tell, is her opening quest, which is something along the lines of Dark Elves are mean, aren't they?
She's right.
Well, I mean, absolutely, but that's not really it's not really a reason for
you know,
remind me who the final battle's against.
Oh, don't. I will lose my shit.
It is pretty weird. It's like, yeah, Dark Elves always raid the coastline, so you have to go and fight them. But it's like, it's Kislev. It's so far away for them. Like they probably wouldn't be raided. Like they're very rarely raided by them anyway. Like they have to go so far for this.
They don't have much of a fucking coastline.
It's
like Erengrad and
you're not allowed to use her unit, the full Kislev units, unless you have friends or own one of the 3 Kislev major cities. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It'll take them like 20 turns to make contact with someone in Kislev. And then I need to get into an alliance with them or take one of their settlements. And this is like, you know, if you've been in an alliance with them, they also need to survive against the Changeling who's now in the area. It's just like,
oh yeah. I was playing a Catherine campaign, and the Costaltine died on like turn 10 or something. And it's like, okay, let's see. Faction mechanic. Compete versus Costaltine.
I win.
I think Kislev's a weird faction in general. It's a faction that's built around those 3 cities, and yet 50% of the lords for that faction don't start anywhere near those 3 cities.
Damn, you are so right.
Yeah. It's almost like CA forgotten this. They've built this faction that's like based around these 3 cities, then stuck these 2 lords in the Chaos Waste and Nagarond respectively.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad when it was Boris, because Boris was like, I'm on a quest to take out Chaos. I'm like, okay, old man, have fun. But Mama Stanky just makes 0 sense.
I mean, Boris was clearly something that was made for the other campaigns, and they were just went, you know what, we can make a campaign out of this. Why not? Well, it'll be easy. because he doesn't have a faction mechanic. He like gets to watch the other two do their faction mechanic.
Oh, that annoys me so much.
No, he's got oh fuck, what is it? It's like he builds churches quickly, I think. So
he can get more supporters to support his daughter.
yes,
Or whoever
but
he
it is a
chooses.
mechanic.
In exchange
Is
for
it though?
nothing. Ah, right, I see. I get it now.
Is building
okay.
churches fast a mechanic though?
Well, I guess if you're in the Chaos Waste, you need something to offset the horrific corruption. So
I mean, he gets, doesn't he get bears slightly cheaper in his army or something? And
he
slightly
does,
better?
yes, that's true. Bears.
Bear,
So I mean,
man.
Are those
pretty-
really
pretty big.
mechanics though? Like mechanics?
Obviously, no.
Like if you want to talk about that, like isn't like a mechanic something that they have to work around or something like that? Not just having like Malekith's faction mechanic as Dark Elves isn't just having like 50% cheaper dread spears.
Yeah, I think we have been a little bit spoiled in that department because every DLC lord has a mechanic, as like you are talking about. Like it's something that's unique about them. Like you've got Ikit's Workshop, you've got Grom's Cauldron. So whenever you see a faction that just has nothing, especially like Boris, where the other factions have stuff and he just doesn't, it really sticks out as being like did you just add this in because you could, or
although maybe not having a mechanic is
mechanic
the
in itself.
mechanic.
Wise words. Wise words.
Well, like I said earlier, they kind of want to keep those lords like as basic for new players so they don't get confused.
Or if you're a new
It's
player and you
it's what
go
I
for
heard.
it and you go for Boris, God bless your
You'll
soul.
be very
my boys.
confused. Enjoy having a terrible economy in the middle of uninhabitable terrain.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those questions. It's like, yeah, I'm playing as this. Well, they can't play Boris because they have to unlock him.
Oh yeah.
But people have been saying like, oh, well, I'm playing as this and that, and why is everything so difficult? It's my first ever campaign. I'm playing as Kugath. Is like why don't I have that much money? And it's like, well,
Nurgle.
that's the faction mechanic. So
Well, the thing is, Nurgle's economy actually isn't bad. The problem is, it's really expensive. Everything's really expensive. You're making the Dragon Isles can make like 6,000 a turn easily, but when just one of your buildings can cost 10k.
Yeah, the cyclical buildings thing. It seems cool in practice, but then you realize you have the entire cost of every tier of the building in one. It's like when you commit to a building, you commit to that building. Yeah. So if you like queue upload of stuff, then it gets killed in one turn. Like, God, exits Windows is getting clicked at record speed.
So I feel like most campaigns, you get to a point late game where you have more money than you really know what to do with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with Kugath, you don't. You're always spending all your money each turn and thinking, I've still got these, 13 provinces to upgrade, and I don't have enough money to do that. And that's the problem with the Nurgle economy. It's all to do with those buildings. That's cylindrical. What's the word?
Cyclical.
Cyclical. Thank you. And buildings, which is again nice in theory, but is really confusing, incredibly convoluted, and also actually just worse than having normal buildings.
I feel like that's just the story of Warhammer 3, to be honest. Like, it's just worse than Warhammer 2. Sounds cool in theory, but just way more complicated, but worse in practice.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that
as well.
I think Warhammer 3 has done a lot of cool things, and I will say that all of the factions are very thematic. However, for all the factions with really cool mechanics, you have an ogre faction. So,
God, pre-order DLC being bad. Who could have seen it coming?
I think that's always the problem with the power creep from DLCs. That those power creeps ones still exist in the same game as Norsca does.
Poor Norsca.
I mean, their economy's good.
I like Norsca's roster.
I really like Norsca's roster, and that's why it like makes me so angry. But their economy, like this is a little can of worms actually that I have a pet peeve with. Because every time CA doesn't know how to properly fix something, or doesn't have the time or the resources spent to actually fix something, they just boost their economy, and that kind of placates a lot of people. And personally, I hate that. It's like Norsca was shits. Their problems were that they were getting invaded from every single corner. Everybody hated them and would invade everywhere. Coastlines are effectively front lines, and Norsca spans from God and Langwil, or no, wait, yeah, basically there, and then it spans to Krakadrin, basically. That's like the actual space that it exists in. If you want to own that, you will be invaded in 5,000 different places, essentially.
Yeah.
Like your front line is humongous. So that's like their main issue. Their other issues were... No, I'm in my rant now. I'm gonna let you guys know when you can talk. That. And then, they still have like their weird rituals. Their thematics are so weird. If you like ever read up about the lore, Wulfric being like the dude who travels the world to duel people for the dark gods, and is really good at single combat. No, instead he hunts monsters and he rides a fucking mammoth instead.
At least he throws a boat at people.
Well, almost, right? But instead of people, he hunts monsters, and it just gets so weird. Throg being like the most intelligent troll out there, not even intelligent for a troll, but intelligent in general. Like he's when everybody else scrounges for resources and things like that. Well, not research, but gold maybe in the end times. He scrounges for cultural artifacts to be able to bribe people. Like he knows the value of things like that. Like he's one of the smartest characters in the entirety of Warhammer. His only dream is to have an equal, a monster that can think and feel like him. Like that's his end goal. But then he just goes around saying, "I eat my enemies." It's just weird. I don't know, man. And then CA goes like, you know what'll fix this? Port income. Give them a ton of port income, and then they can just build stuff everywhere. And some bastard out there is going to say stuff like, oh, well, just play them as a horde faction. And it's like, how can you play them as a horde faction? It takes 5 turns for global recruitments. Like, if you go out there, travel the world, you'll be punished for it because you still need the buildings at home. And the global recruitment takes so long. You're not a horde faction. You just pretend to be one. Anyway, rant over. Goddamn Norsca.
I mean, you're entirely correct.
Absolutely.
But I would say that the whole coastal problem, that's a deeper problem in Total War, and has been ever since I want to say Rome 2, when... Was it Rome 2 you could just walk into the sea with your army? I think it was. Yes, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rome 2 was the first game where you could literally just walk your army into the sea and it would turn into a transport fleet. And ever since then, coastal regions have been a fucking nightmare to defend. Because
it seems like the coast just might as well not exist.
Yeah, basically. It just turns it into another front, but one that the AI can just sail up and down. You can't ambush. There's no choke points or anything. It's just a big, wide open space, which means coastlines are now just an absolute nightmare to defend.
Yeah, but if we go into like lore, we can find really good solutions to that as well. For example, Norsca, not coastlines as a whole, but Norsca has more coastline per settlement than any other place, I'm willing to bet.
Almost certainly.
Like, it's heavily chaos corrupted. It's hard to traverse. There's wildlife everywhere that would, like, if it wasn't for the chaos corruption and the wild things that happen thanks to chaos corruption, like snowstorms that will literally rip people's arms off, demons spawning everywhere, and dark gods is whispering to people to kill each other. Also, like, monsters, goddamn, everywhere. And if that's not enough, you also have the vicious cycle of violence that happens over there. As soon as somebody tries to start farming, the other people who got their farm raided became raiders and will now raid them. Instead, you have this roaming bands of former peasants that are all built like small Japanese trucks, basically, from just living there. So, like, going in there and invading there shouldn't be easy. whatsoever. It should be worth it though, because like lore-wise, it's also full of like resources, diamonds, precious metals, wildlife to hunt and eat and stuff like that. But that wildlife will also try to kill you much better than other stuff, than except maybe the Drak Vault or something.
Yeah,
So it's like Australia then.
It feels like unless you're playing as Norsca or like one of the Warriors of Chaos, like you just ignore them. Like you take out their armies, you maybe take out a coastal settlement, but there's just no point going there because it's such a hassle. For the entire just north band, unless you start there or actively need to be there, there is no reason to go there, which is quite sad.
Yes, that's also one of those really bad things, right? If the AI will invade you constantly, but you never go there because it's not worth it. So the AI is just doing it out of spite.
Yep.
Yeah. They're doing it because they've got nothing better to do. There's been several times in several campaigns where I've had to like invade the Chaos Waste just to stop the endless... I was playing Grimgore and Archaon declared war on me. And it was just constant. I had one army sat there and their job was to just fend off stack after stack after stack of Chaos Warriors because they had nothing better to do but send stacks at me. And that was just very frustrating. Because you're fighting the same battle in the same place again and again and again, turn after turn. It was literally every 2 turns I was having to fight a battle there. And that's incredibly annoying.
That's the player focus never makes anything more fun. Now, I'm going to segue this a little bit because this is a problem I've had in Pharaoh.
Oh, good segue.
So we're not actually allowed to give a review score right now. We're not going to say a score or recommend the game or anything like that, but we'll talk about our thoughts and feelings and stuff like that towards the game at this point. Now, I was playing Corunta, and at turn 6, 6 factions, no, turn 7, 6 factions went to war with me in the same goddamn turn. And I had just been conquering all the time. Like, I hadn't lost much. My army was attrition after a lot of fights, but I hadn't lost units. And 6 goddamn factions went to war with me. So after about 10 turns, everybody had mustered stuff, and I had about 8 armies in my place.
Yes.
And that's just... I said before that I don't usually have a problem with playing on the hard difficulties. Usually it's like okay or it's easy, and then I have like 1 or 2 hard. But those kinds of things, like early game, I couldn't even afford a whole army almost. So I had to do that with like 17 units, and then with that many armies inside, that just, I don't know, that just didn't feel fun.
No, I mean, I have issues with the resources in Pharaoh, but I've not experienced too much AI aggression. Most of the issues I've had are with like the raiders and stuff. I'm wondering, because you were playing on legendary, weren't you?
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Because I only play on very hard, so I'm wondering if it's something to do with like the legendary AI just going absolutely insane or something. Because I found the AI to be quite passive for the most part.
Well, I'll have to play that campaign again and just see what I feel about it. But like that turn was insane. And I had several other campaigns as well where that just happens, and then you just get dogpiled, and there's nothing you can do. Well, obviously you can fall back, defend, and then have to push away from there. But that it becomes such a chore basically.
Yeah, especially when you've only got 1 army versus 8. It just means that you're having to fight in such an efficient... It's no longer a strategy game. It's a wave assault game. You're just trying to fend off endless waves of enemies. And the problem is, as soon as you've defeated the first one, they're going to respawn their stack and start building up again. By the time you've defeated the 8, the first will probably be along again.
Yeah, so I'll have to play that game more, regardless though, to see if I'm tilted or however I feel. It's
I will say I do think the resources are really stingy.
Explain.
Because I checked this. I checked Troy against Pharaoh, in pretty much every single case, all of the settlements give less resources. So you'll get less food from a food settlement in Pharaoh than you will in Troy. So you'd think that units would be cheaper, but they're actually as expensive or slightly more expensive in bronze. So particularly early game, you end up with not enough food to support more than one army until you've got around 5 provinces, which is pretty poor. Now, you can obviously trade, but that assumes you've got enough resources to trade for food. But if you're starving for all the resources anyway, you're unlikely to actually have much to trade in the first place. So, I mean, even with I've been playing as Ammon Messi in the south of Egypt, and he has a buttload of gold mines. And as such, I've been basically floating armies just by selling off all my gold. But I'm having to, I think I'm trading something like 2,500 food. I'm gaining 2,500 food a turn to support my armies. And even then, I'm in a deficit, which is insane when I've got 5 provinces.
Yeah, I was like at 900 minus or something like that every single turn, but I just like thought that I'm a raid economy now is what I told myself.
I haven't played much Pharaoh because I kind of got like sickened off by the it just pissed me off. So I was like, you know what, no thanks. But from like the little bits that I did play of that and Troy, I feel like I like the tradable resources being like actual resources that you use. I think it also introduces a lot of new issues around balancing it, because instead of just balancing for gold, you're now balancing for how many is it? So you got food, isn't it? Stone, wood, bronze, and gold.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, with the struggle to balance Total War with just gold. So how they're going to manage it with 5? It's like you say, monsters. It sounds like the struggle.
I think they did it really well in Troy.
Yeah, same.
I think Troy was fine, so I'm a bit confused as to why they've suddenly made it way worse. Not to mention the fact that, I mean, I think what they're thinking is that there's a whole bunch of buildings that increase percentages. So the idea is that you might have less food overall, but you can then boost it with percentages, something like that, I think. But obviously that means if you take over a settlement, it's less useful right away. You need the entire province, and then you need to build that province up. So it's not useful immediately, particularly because some food settlements, for example, only have one food building they can build, because they're not all cookie cutter anymore like they were in Troy, where every food settlement would have the same buildings in it. Now, a food settlement might have, I don't know, a Shadoof farm if it's, in Egypt, but not on the Nile, or it might have, I don't know, irrigation fields or something if it's on the Nile. Alternatively, it might have a wood port, even though it's a food settlement for some reason. I'm not entirely 100% sure. Sometimes they'll have stone on them as well. It doesn't actually tell you why. But either way, if you get like a food settlement in the middle of the desert, it's got a Shadoof farm, but that can only be built at rank 3. And unlike Troy, your main settlement buildings don't actually give you any resources. So until that settlement reaches rank 3, it gives you no food whatsoever. So it just feels kind of, in some ways, it feels like they've just made it harder to balance for themselves.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the resources were never a problem really in Troy. Troy had other problems with its own kind of difficulty as well, unless you were playing certain factions. But resources wasn't the problem really in that regard. It didn't need that much tweaking.
No, I think, to be honest, my main issue with Troy is the Norsca problem, in that the Aegean Sea exists, and that means you've got a shit ton of coastline.
Oh yeah, and then the seaman gets everywhere.
It's so much seaman. All over you. Yeah, so I definitely cancel. I definitely quit at least one campaign because I was so sick of just running up and down the coastline trying to fend off stacks in Troy. And I think that was my main issue with the game. But the resources I thought were really good. Like it felt like such a good system. It made raiding actually worthwhile, which great. So then this change in Pharaoh is just a bit. I can't wrap my brain around it, to be honest.
There's still much time for them to fix that up and tweak a little bit at least.
I would hope so. However, given previous experience, I'm not going to hold my breath. I just think that's it. Basically, I think they've got the vision for the game, and that is apparently the vision for whatever reason. It's just
I try to remain positive.
Oh,
well, to some extent. But I don't know. I always enjoy Total War games. I do hope that I will enjoy this one as well. But right now, I'm facing a lot of weird issues. But like I've been playing these for 20 years, so hopefully I'll enjoy this one as well once I give it enough time and learn everything. Because I've actually not gotten into the legacies and all of those things.
So that's something I do like. I think Pharaoh does a lot of things right. As much as I'm a bit confused about the resources, I really like the legacies, and I really like the court system because I think it's the best political system that Total War have ever done. I don't think it's a flawless system, but it's definitely the best they've ever done, which is saying something, because I think the last political system we had was in Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And that was fine, but it was a little bit basic. And this one actually feels a bit more, kind of feels like a bit more like a mini game in a way, but in a good way. And the legacies, I think, are a great way to customize your faction. It's almost like it lets you add a mechanic to your faction, but you get to pick which one. And it can be, you can play any faction you like, and you can pick that mechanic that works with it. The only thing I will say is that the Egyptians get 4 legacies, of which 3 of them are really good and 1 is a bit meh. And the Hittites, both of them are awful. So you're probably best off being an Egyptian, to be honest.
Kind of feels like that it felt like that in Troy as well. Either you were Danann or you were, well, not as good.
God, remind me, which ones were Danans? Were they were the Trojans, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, they were. I don't know. I always found that the Trojans got their bottoms kicked. So it was almost always the Greeks sailing across, which I guess does make, sense. But it meant that if you were on the Trojan side, you just tended to have a bad time.
I had the opposite
really
experience, where well, it depends on who you play as well, right? You're always gonna like notice you being invaded because you got invaded by anyone anyway. So one would sail over anyway. But I just felt like the Trojan soldiers were actually better than the Greeks.
I do remember I played Odysseus with my first campaign. And there did come a point where I was fighting Hector, and they had Hector's Chosen.
Oh yeah,
and I just couldn't kill those fuckers. They were just immune to everything. They were flanking immune. They would just roll over me, and I couldn't do anything about it. And then one of them was like, they would have like a stack in Troy itself, and I looked at it, and it was just 2 full stacks of Hector's Chosen sitting there with my poor sneaky skirmisher boys, and I just thought, I can't win this. So I quit that campaign out of exasperation.
Yeah, some of those units were crazy. If we're just if we're not even mentioning chariots, for example, but chariots are kind of balanced now, I guess.
Yeah, chariots have always been a bit weird in Total War. They're either absolute murder machines or absolute trash, and there doesn't seem to be any in between. I think they're not too bad in Pharaoh, though.
I haven't noticed them being I haven't actually gotten to the point where I get heavily armored super chariots yet, but apparently those exist as well.
Yeah, I've
Gotta
been
have
using.
some super weapon.
I've been, you can, so in the court system, you can, if you cozy up to the first captain, the person in the first captain position, you can get access to like some special recruitable units, like the royal units, and you can often find chariots and that. And the ones I've used there are very strong, but if they get bogged down, they're dead. And I think that's fairly balanced.
Yeah, I think so as well. I never had like super like any issues with facing them either, unless they actually got into the flank and I just wasn't protected the flank, and then I was like, well, that's on me.
Yeah, and they're great for chasing stuff down. Like you will rack up hundreds and hundreds of kills if they're just rolling over people, because apparently if someone's running away and you just hit them with the chariot, they're dead, which I guess is potentially historically accurate.
Yeah, I think they changed it for Pharaoh as well. So if you're actually hitting stuff in the back, you do extra amounts of damage compared to other newer Total Wars. So it's also much more dangerous to, for example, switch your units to go a little bit further back, or like try to pull them out of melee to incentivize you using the stances to like fall back.
Yeah, I've had a few people comment on my videos stuff like, oh, you just need to use the fall back or advance formation or whatever it is, but not all the units have it. And I think people don't really understand that.
It's a new system. It's not out yet, so it's going to take some time.
Yeah, I mean, where I have used it, it's worked quite well. I think there was a few points where I was trying to like get guys into a spear formation, and out of the 4 units moving into spear formation, one of them decided to reform themselves in the other direction, so they weren't facing the right way for some reason, even though I dragged it out. So I don't entirely know what was going on there, but at least the spear line worked. That was nice.
That's nice.
That's nice. So, Damneders, have you played Pharaoh at all, or have you?
I did like 30 minutes in the first the first wave. I was like, oh wait, I should probably record myself doing this so I can, upload it and then use it for content. And then I just didn't. And this was, I think we're allowed to say now, like when we first got access, it was before Shadows of Change came out. And so after Shadows of Change came out, I was just like in no mood to give CA the time of day on a secondary project that I'm personally not that interested in. I'm definitely more in the camp of fantasy over, like, I played Total War Warhammer for the Warhammer and the fantasy and the cool units rather than the Total War. If it was like Civilization Warhammer, I'd probably be playing that. Which someone write that down because that sounds pretty rad. But no, I played like 30 minutes, not enough to make any real thoughts. Sadly.
Yeah,
That's why I've been sat in silence for like 45 minutes.
It was a busy. What was it? Was it September, or was it whichever month that came out? It was a very busy month. Well,
yeah, it was the same time as it was the same time as the Shadow of Change, so everybody was kind of busy with that as well.
Yeah, it was quite full on for a few weeks, wasn't it? Which is amazing considering that we've not had anything since the Chaos Wars, which was February.
It was earlier than that. Oh wait, no, later than that. Sorry, I think it was March.
March.
Yeah, it seems that they just are like, okay, nothing, and then here's everything we have, and then 6 months nothing, everything we have again. I don't understand that. I mean, I suppose you're trying to hit your release windows.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's because we can't put a number on it, and we can't say whether you should buy it or not. But I just don't. I just not entirely sure.
I might just. I think I'm just gonna stop you instead because when it's like we can't put a number on it, but we can recommend it. But I don't think anything after that is actually gonna be good. So I'm gonna ask you this instead. Have you checked out the skins? Because I think we're allowed to show the skins as well. Have you checked them out at all?
I didn't even know we had access to them.
Yeah, I also thought somebody asked what they're like, and I was searching for them. It's like, oh, I haven't found them at all. But skins are very, very interesting, regardless, to see what's going to happen with the cosmetics. Because I, as a former League of Legends addict, have spent all too much money on mystery skins, and so I can't really say that it's a bad thing without being an actual hypocrite. So I'm just gonna, let the community decide and let us see if people actually enjoy cosmetics and stuff like that.
Okay, here's my problem with cosmetics, and I've played, like, full disclosure, I played PlanetSide 2 for a long time, and I had a shit ton of helmets. So I'm also tainted, but this kind of feeds into this, what you just stopped me saying is, who's particularly interested in giving Amon Messi a new hat?
It's a bit of a bizarre choice, isn't it?
Right. I mean, one, I don't know who that fucking guy is. I mean, he's got a fishnet top on. He looks fantastic. I'll give him that. But do I really want to give him a fancy new shoulder pad? Not really. I don't give a shit. And also, when the fuck are you going to see it? Because it's really hard to find your lord during a battle.
Well, especially, like, it makes sense, or more sense in Warhammer at least, because, people do paint their minis. Where's the army painter? But I digress. But it makes a lot more sense in Warhammer because lords are these larger than life, literally, characters. Yeah. You see them on the campaign map. You see them in battle.
Absolutely.
I think without mods, most lords in battle are just bigger than their units, unless that's been patched out. It used to be the way that is. But you see them all the time. So why would you do it now in Pharaoh, where they're part of a bodyguard, so they are now like an ant in the middle of a million other ants who look very similar to them?
Yeah, it's incredibly hard. There's been times where I've been trying to find my lord and have failed and just given up. So I don't know who is going to want to buy a fancy new shoe for your legendary lord when you, one, don't know who they fucking are really, and two, can't find them on a fucking battlefield anyway. So it's, yeah, I agree. It would be better in a game like Warhammer where you actually give a shit about your lord and also you can find them.
I think the ship has sailed. I would have actually paid literal money. Like, if I wouldn't have gotten a code from CA as a content partner, I would have paid money to give Agamemnon a panda hat.
Yeah, if you're going to do cosmetics, do cosmetics.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't care if they look slightly weirder historical wise. It's Agamemnon should have had, if I could have made Agamemnon a silly, like, lord among lords, I would have 100% Agamemnon would have ridden around on his panda chariot with a panda hat.
They should just with something really obscene.
And I would have just cackled so much. I know some historical dudes would just be like, no, that's historically accurate, but like Agamemnon, he was so funny. Because every time I like charge in with chariots and stuff like that, I would just go, Agamemnon, every single time.
Thing is, I'm with you, because I think that Troy is based around a historical period that people are more familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
It's also yesteryear's superheroes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, basically. So, people know who Achilles is. People know who most people will know who Ajax is. And so that kind of
the laundry detergent.
That's right.
Okay.
So more people know who those people are. I just don't know who cares about the Egyptian Bronze Age. Like, I get that it's an interesting period of time. I just don't think that it's quite a niche historical period. So bringing cosmetics in this game feels very weird.
I mean, really what they should be doing is getting a partnership with Stargates and just like making cosmetics from Stargates, and people would actually care.
So I'm saying, if you're going to do cosmetics, do like insane shit. Like, have it so that you can have, instead of like all your guys wearing togas and, having sticks, it's a load of guys with leather jackets, biker jeans, and a baseball bat. If you're going to do cosmetics, why not just go whole hog? It's an insane idea.
Baseball bats have to be for the clubmen, though. They can't just change the spears. That would be silly. That's like a little bit over the top.
Sorry, I'll back up.
Yeah, calm the fuck down.
Sorry.
But this would have worked for like Three Kingdoms as well, right?
Mm.
It's just,
it
just doesn't work in this game.
Definitely.
Very weird. The only thing I can think of is it's testing the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Going, how much of a backlash are we going to get for this?
Yeah, it seems like they really use CA Sophia titles to like test what they can get away with. Like they did the Epic deal, and that blew up. So like, fucking hell, better not do that with anything else. They're doing this. I feel bad for CA Sophia because they're making, even though I'm not into it because it's more historical based, the product is like universally accepted by the people that have played it as being pretty good. But then just the insane decisions like the EA, good lord. I hope not. The Epic exclusivity and the cosmetics and all these super duper deluxe editions that offer nothing. Like a season pass. When has a Total War game had a season pass?
Yeah, that's
Epic seems to be a weird little thing as well, because now it's delayed on Epic compared to the rest. So what that tells me is that some deal has gotten very weird. It is not like a normal deal. Either they have decided, like, they couldn't get a good deal like they did with Troy, which was probably a fantastic money-making deal for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And their, negotiations broke down, and now there is a trade embargo on Naboo, basically. So, or they're gonna give it away for free when it's launching on Epic instead.
Yeah, it's very strange. It was like, well, where do you want your audience to be? Because do you want them on Steam? Or do you want them on
Epic? You want
like,
them everywhere, though. I don't think really anyone cares there.
I mean, yeah, if you can get people to buy the game on both platforms, obviously that's what, any big Sonic the Hedgehog in a suit wants. It's just it's just weird.
I mean, either it's like the monopoly, which is Steam, which is okay considering everything. I guess it's still a monopoly, or it's like Epic, which is really weird, and I think everyone is a little bit weary of, because they do not want them to because they obviously want a monopoly instead on the gaming
it's
markets.
So weird. Like everyone accepts that Steam is the monopoly, like you say, and personally, I'm relatively okay with it because Steam is a good platform. They put out like most updates they do, especially if you have a Steam Deck, are good things. They have good sales on all the time. Like I'm a fair hype with Steam, but Epic wants it so bad that it's like, well, what are they gonna do if they get it? It's not scary is a bit of a dramatic word, but it's.
I mean, they have done shady stuff in they have done shady stuff in the past as well. I should have put that up in the notes in case that came up on the podcast. But they have done shady stuff in the past, and people are in their rights to be wary of them. But overall, like for the developer right now, if you just want to sell your game, well, they take a smaller cut from it at least.
But then you're like, oh no, that game's on Epic. That developer's stinky.
I think the problem with Epic is that it's just a terrible platform.
It's hard to use on PC. Like Steam just opens seamlessly. There's the store. It's easy to purchase. Epic, it's like, I don't know, it just seems to run like shit on my computer. And we obviously don't have bad computers because we do this at least partially for a living. So it's like, if it's difficult to use and runs bad for some reason, or feels like it's running badly on my computer, like, people that are just running it on like a laptop, like I did when I started playing PC games, they're like, oh, I can't even run the browser.
It's also got like a fraction of the the bells and whistles that Steam you kind of take for granted.
Well, it's usability. It's just missing so much stuff. Like you can't just put stuff in a basket. You want to grab your free games, you have to like go into the storefront again after you already gone, like put it into the basket, go on into the checkouts, put it in for free, and then you have to go into the store and do the same thing again, which is just a little bit, I don't know, a bit too much sometimes.
Yeah, Steam makes it.
It's actually never too much. I grab every single free game.
Absolutely, Steam makes it exceedingly easy to part with your money. Very
almost too easy.
Hard agree. I do not want to look at my Steam library. Oh dear.
I've got to the point where it's hard to find games now. I can't just scroll up and down. I have to actively search for them, and sometimes I forget what games I've bought, and then.
Oh, sweet. All right. I've just seen how many games I have in my Steam library. That's shameful.
I have 965.
Okay, I have less than that. Thank God. I have 893.
How do you even see how many you have?
If you click the drop
You go
down,
up there for the games, and then you just remove any other recent activity and show only ready to play games, and then you go up to the top.
I've only got 355,
Weak.
so I know, terrible. And even then, I occasionally buy a game and then think, oh shit, what was that called? And then I can't find it.
Oh,
Yeah,
this
same.
is completely off topic. But if you go into your Steam library, you can actually sort by where is it? Date added to library. So you can like see which ones you bought recently.
Holy shit!
And recent
Game changer.
Recent activity is pretty nice.
Yeah, I've used that one before.
That's my default, but yeah, the recently bought is good.
But also have like a ton of Humble Bundle games, and then I do a ton of games for stream as well. Do like 100, minimum 120 every year.
Yeah, I just have a problem.
That's fair.
I don't want to talk about it.
That's the first step of... Wait, no.
That's the first step of denial.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like we've deviated from the state of the game, but I feel
no,
like
you just mentioned denial.
Nice.
So we're still about Pharaoh.
Pharaoh.
Segue back.
I feel like we've hit most things. You know, we hit Shadows of Change. So future, what was it called? Thrones of Decay. Has CA got a chance at redemption? What do you think? I think this is their last chance. They have to knock this one out of the park. It has to be priced okay, and if the price doesn't change, then the content needs to be like hot shit, and there needs to be more of it. If not, I ain't got much faith that the game can recover.
CA are definitely, Total War is definitely going into make it or break it situation where they will need like a big hits title basically to become a thing again. Because right now they're competing with so many good titles as well. If they would have done this maybe like a year or so ago or 2 years ago during COVID, then things might have been different. But right now, man, they really need to hit Thrones of Decay out of the ballpark. And I do think that CA are kind of scrambling at seams as well, and really know this as well, that Thrones of Decay needs to be a 10 out of 10 update for the game.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that CA know. It depends if the right people at CA know and care.
Yeah.
But, you know, at least.
I think the fact that we've seen quite a few hotfixes, because this is something that we haven't really seen since Warhammer 3's release. We've just been getting patches, and I can't remember another hotfix. The fact that we've had, God, what is it, 2 now?
3.
3? We've got 3. I mean, that is in itself quite telling, and it's very. I'm very appreciative that they are getting round to fixing things. That's great. Kind of feels like it's in response to backlash, though.
Yeah,
they left the faction unable to recruit their basic units. Decay couldn't recruit Kroxigor. He's literally the Kroxigor guy. He couldn't recruit Kroxigor. They left that for 3 months. They could have hotfixed that, and they chose not to.
Yeah, they're only doing all these quote unquote good actions.
Yeah,
because they are like so in the shit, and everyone is just dogpiling them.
Yeah. So while it's great they're doing it because they fucked up.
Yeah.
And because they got called out for it. And that is, in my opinion, doesn't deserve a pat on the head.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, same. I'm like,
this is the stuff
if you're hotfixing it should have worked from the get-go.
Yeah, this is the stuff that they should have been doing the whole time. This isn't like, wow, say, you're really coming in and redeeming yourself with all this spot. No, this is the shit that you should have been doing the entire time. This is part of the problem. I'm glad that you're doing it now, but this is like, I don't know, it's like, I'm trying to think of I'm not sure if allegory is the right word, or like a metaphor. I suppose like...
It's like, I got a good one. It's like having your partner never cooking and never cleaning and doing the dishes, and then they decide to do half the work and think they're going to get praise for it, even though that should be the minimum effort.
Yeah, like they make dinner and then just like leave the kitchen like a bomb's gone off. It's like, well...
Yeah, something like that anyway.
Half a job. Is a
Yeah, but
is the general consensus.
it feels like this has been the state of the game since Warhammer 3 came out.
Woven like a quilt, that was.
Right? But because I mean I was looking back and looking at the patches that came out after Warhammer 3 came out and comparing that with, say, when Rome 2 came out. They patched Rome 2 like 5 or 6 times in the first 3 weeks. And Warhammer 3 got a hotfix, which was basically a case of the game didn't run on some hardware, which was kind of, and that was a week after release.
Yeah, it's like you can compare the launch of the patch cycle of Warhammer 3 to a lot of different games. Like Baldur's Gate came out sort of similar time to Shadows of Change, and then they have just been hitting patch after patch after patch with like hotfixes in between. And you can compare that, but obviously it's not the same company. But you compare CA to CA, and they are still coming up short. It's like these are the expectations that you have set for yourself, and this is what we expect from you because it's what you've done in the past, and then you just stop doing it. Well, why? And then you want praise because you start doing it again?
I think in part that was the cause of a lot of the backlash, was the fact that they came out with that statement, which in part went, "Oh look, we're fixing the game." Yes,
you buy
should
DLC,
be.
we fix game, please.
Oh, I think I missed that statement actually.
So I mean, I feel like it's almost like Warhammer 3 came out and CA were almost done with it. That's what it felt like. Because the first patch we got, I think, was like a month after release. And that patch was something like 5 or 6 different things. It, there wasn't comprehensive changes. It wasn't, people had, the beginning would come out, people were annoyed with it. And their response was to just sort of tighten up the things that they'd already done, and not go, "Oh yeah, shit, most of the mechanics on the ogres are garbage, we need to change that. Oh yeah, the tech trees are shit, we need to do something about that." We didn't get that until like another month down the road. That's when they went through some of the numbers in Warhammer 3 and tweaked them to be actually effective. And I cannot believe it took them 2 months.
That was like really surprising as well for which one was it? It was Siege and someone else as well that needed like more replenishment. Slaanesh, Siege and Slaanesh, they needed more replenishment, and they said they were gonna fix it in 6 months. And everyone's like, "Oh well, they're probably gonna make some mechanic that is, replenishment will be tied to like really heavily tied to corruption, or something like that." And it'll be a cool thing anyway. And they just put in like a tech and a skill. And that was it.
Yeah. So they just basically went through and tweaked a bunch of numbers, and I can't believe that took them months to get round to. It just I cannot wrap my brain around that.
It really feels like they thought that Warhammer 3, and I think a lot of us thought this was too big. And like it couldn't possibly fail because everyone wanted it. Everyone was so hyped for it. When the first trailers came out, I was like squirming in my seat. Like I was just so excited seeing all the Chaos Gods. I was so ready for it. How could it possibly be bad? And I remember I gave it like a ridiculously high review when the game first came out because I was just so swept up in the hype. And looking back on it now, I'm like, I'm so ashamed of myself because this game is just, it's not even close. I think I gave it like a 9 or something. It's not even close. Current state, it is like, I don't know, 7 maybe, and it's not a passionate 7. It's sad.
Yeah, I just feel like they're just not putting the effort in.
Definitely not.
This feels like, I mean, it's an amazing accomplishment having 3 games linked together. That is, I can't think of another game series that's done that. This should be their masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I can't understand why they just don't seem to be bothered with it.
It's a bit like like this is a character that occurs in a lot of shows, but I've been watching all the Murders in the Building recently, and there's a guy in it, and his entire gimmick is that like, oh, I was an actor in like the 80s. Do you remember that? I'm a big actor, you know. This is why people know about me. That's what it feels like with Warhammer 3. It's like, oh, you know, it's Warhammer 3. We made Warhammer 2. You know, this is our thing. It's come from us. The people that made that game that you like. And it's like, well, yeah, but the thing you're making now it kind of stinks. So fix it. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating for everyone.
It is frustrating, and it's frustrating because you know the Creative Assembly have like 1,000 people working for them. So why is tweaking some numbers taking quite so long? And I don't want to throw modders at this problem, but they have come out with some amazing stuff. Like genuinely, some of the mods you can find are fantastic. And you've got things like the community bug fix mod, which, you know, go and do what Creative Assembly should be fucking doing.
Yeah, I think actually the Yin Yin mod, for example, was better than Huanbo as a Cathay playthrough or campaign.
I've not tried that one.
It's pretty good. You should try it.
I will. Anything which doesn't stick. Where do you start? It's not.
It's also dual start, actually.
Oh,
actually, you actually start in roughly the same place. Well, Southern Cathay and in Northern Lustra, both of them.
But that's the Sea Dragon, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, that kind of makes sense. That's fine.
Yeah, it was kind of weird where you're like, oh, I'm Juan Bo and I'm gonna fix up this compass, so I'm gonna go to a different continent for it.
Yeah,
because that's where we used to have them or something. I'm not really sure.
I genuinely don't really understand what was. To be honest, I don't understand. I'm just going back to SOC again, but a lot of SOC just seemed a bit confusing. Kind of the last battle for the Changeling was against the Empire and Cathay and Bretonia and the dwarves apparently.
Well, it's against like everyone you haven't done a scheme against.
Yeah. Why?
Well, you take them out of the ultimate scheme, so it'll be easier to do.
What is the ultimate scheme?
Yeah, so that's where you got me though. I'll admit. So I knew it was going to come to this because ultimate scheme doesn't really do anything. It's like it's just somebody who's sitting there and just like, all right, then let's just go home. And like the other side of your associate just looks at you and like, oh well, this was a huge bother, and just go home, continue on as always.
This is the ultimate scheme, right? But what is it? The ultimate scheme. Okay, but what is this? What I get it. I get it. It's the ultimate. That sounds fantastic. But what is the what is the plan here? It's a scheme. Yes, it's ultimate. Right, I get that. But what the fuck are we doing?
Have you watched Always Sunny? Like, Frank, what does the company do? It makes money. No, what do we produce? We produce wealth.
And then there's like the cinematic at the end, which someone explained this to me, but it's something like the Changeling has stolen Zinch's chair or something. That was the ultimate scheme.
It's just really, really weird though. It's it's definitely like a bother.
But that's not the only thing, because Yuan Bo, his final battle is in Cathay for some reason, and I still don't know why.
I can't remember it. I just cruised through that campaign. I tried to keep it to like that I could have a couple of more regions than I was doing turns. So like turn 90, I had like 100 turns. And I was like, well, that's okay.
So that quest battle, you fight Mazdamundi and Tihi. They attack a city that you're defending. That's the
yeah, that's right. It's actually like I remember that one. Oh, it's really easy as well. It's like weirdly easy.
Yes, it is. It is. But also weirdly confusing because it doesn't tell you where this is or why. Or I'm still not entirely sure what Elizabeth meant. I mean, I get the idea that you were like taking over their thingamajig, what do they call it? The geomantic web to use in your compass for some reason.
I will say this as well though, for this one. For something that was costing so much and had so much production value for like, well, for partly units, like models and how cool most of them looked, not everything, but most of them. And things like that. Like I can't understand why they didn't make a single unique map. If I'm like, did they make a single like unique map? Everything was just like old quest battles. It's good that they keep using them, but not for the most expensive DLC.
I think Mother Ostankia's quest battle did have a new map.
I can't remember that one.
Yeah, I mean it's not a particularly interesting one, but I think I don't think I'd seen that one before. And also they did add the Beastmen Herdstone map.
Oh yeah.
So now if you fight a Herdstone, you fight on the Herdstone map.
Oh yeah, well isn't that like adding the old one back?
No, this is a new one. So there's like a new they actually get a settlement battle now. I mean it's only got like 2 points to defend, but that in itself is a bit weird because I don't know who was calling for a Beastman Hearthstone map. I mean it's nice. I just don't know who asked for it. For all the things that they could have had to the game, didn't feel like a big ask, really.
Fair.
But the thing that really confuses me is Mother Ostankia's final battle, which is against the Empire.
Lore-wise accurate. Now, if you are different or weird or look at them funny, the Empire will have issues with this. That is lore-wise accurate. Witch hunters do not look for reasons why they shouldn't prosecute you. A lot of them.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. That's absolutely fair. I feel like they must be pretty dedicated to travel all the way to Nagarond to persecute a witch.
Yeah, so I have like lore explanations for this. Okay, so
is it witch hunters and Ostankia's a witch? Is that the?
Well, it does boil down to that. If you want to like skip the context of my my storytelling, yes.
Sorry, give me context.
Okay, going into the Chaos Waste is hard, right? Gotrek Gurnison tried to do that once and failed, and then found like his axes and stuff like that. But later on, they had an airship that was warded and everything like that. He has to travel in there, and even that would probably be like dangerous to stay too long outside the confines of the airship. And even with the airship, that wouldn't last forever either. Like the Chaos Wastes are horrific to travel, especially if you're not a Chaos Worshipper. As a Chaos Worshipper, some of the effects will kind of be a little bit easier on you, but like as somebody who just goes in there and you're not a Chaos Worshipper, that will be hell on earth every single step of the way. So these people in the Archaeum books, for example, there is a contingent of knights that travel into the wastes to travel after Archaeon. Now, they know Archaeon will be the herald of the end times, so they do put a little bit extra efforts into, hunting him for weeks on end, just murdering madmen, monsters, and the very elements themselves trying to kill them, right? Now, comparatively, traveling all the way to the Chill Lands is kind of, chillax.
Is that the reason?
I mean, I'm saying, fanatics are pretty dedicated.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm just not entirely sure why they go through the effort, really. Not to mention the fact that the loading screen does mention that the Halls of Darkness are going to try and stop you. And then it turns out to be the Empire and apparently some Dryads? Oh, and some Skaven show up after a while as well, for some reason.
I can't remember the quest battle, really. I just played them and then it was like, oh, well, this was cool, I guess.
I just remember being really confused because it doesn't even say they're the Cult of Sigmar until you're in the loading screen. So, and the quest doesn't say anything about them being Empire. The loading screen doesn't. It feels like this was a very last minute decision. Or
maybe the Dryads tricked them. They are shapeshifters after all.
I mean, maybe. I think my main complaint here is it feels like Creative Assembly put very little effort into the story of the DLC, because it wouldn't have taken much. So the idea that the Empire is going to try and stop Mother Ostankia from defeating Chaos because they don't understand what she's doing is not a bad one. But they don't even bother to try to explain it. They just slap 3 witch hunters in the army and go, yeah, I'll do.
Confusing, you say? Poorly written explanations. Well, Juan Bo, favorite son, best diplomat, best spellcaster, best warrior, greatest expeditioner, and bestest big brother might be able to just tell you differently.
Well,
Explain to you.
well, indeed. I think like the problem with this DLC is, other than the price, it feels like they just phoned it in.
Yeah, maybe they just like put a lot of budgets into visuals and mechanics, and then just put in whatever.
That's what it feels like. And I just have, this is my working theory, that Creative Assembly are working on the next Total War game, whatever that might be, and all of the resources are there, and there's nothing left for Warhammer.
But they said that they had just hired more people for Warhammer. There's supposed to be like way more people there now.
Yeah, I'm not sure I believe them, to be honest.
I mean, I've been thinking of that a lot. Like, how much can it actually cost? Like, what's the time resource cost for something? Like, to make the Mutalith Vortex Beast, what does that actually cost? Like, you have one person making stats for it, right? And tweaking the stats. How long does that take? Like 1-2 days? Just tweaking stats and stuff like that? If you know what the animation splash and stuff like that will be?
Yeah, I can't imagine that the animations probably take the most work. The animations and the visuals probably take the most work.
Yeah, but that's like a different person, right? So a different person will sit and do the animations. A different person will sit and do the model, and somebody else will do the coding as well and like the game design. So it's like 5 people making that thing, and it's gonna take like, how long does that take? Like maximum a week, maybe combined or something.
I think so. Yeah.
So
He says, I don't actually know.
yeah, and it's like a couple of people who do that. We still have more people working there. So I'm always confused over the workflow and how long things take. Obviously, some stuff can take way longer, and making a model in just 2 days is probably like very optimistic from this assessment as well. But there's still like more people working on it, and everything shouldn't take as long as well. So like maybe on an average thing, like if the animator and stuff like that work for an entire week, and then the designer work for like a day, and etc. etc. I don't know. It always confuses me, like how much work something takes, and then why more things didn't happen, because it was like a long time since we had other DLCs as well. Well, I mean, we did have the Chaos Dwarfs. I guess I can't complain about that right now, but it was still like was 5 months or something.
Yeah, I mean, it feels better than, obviously, because before that, Warhammer 3 came out in February last year. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Immortal Empires came out in August.
Yeah.
And Chaos Warriors came out at the same time, didn't they?
Yeah.
March. Yes.
And then the next DLC was Chaos Dwarfs. Was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6-month content gaps at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you go back to like Warhammer 1, when there was almost like a month and a half between DLCs. Now, I'm not saying that they can maintain that kind of release schedule, but it does feel like they're kind of struggling at the moment, and I can't tell whether that's because the game's got so unwieldy that it's hard to add stuff to, or whether there's just literally no one working on Warhammer 3. That the resources
very,
aren't
very
there.
weird. Because it's like 6 months in between release and then Immortal Empires and the Chaos Warriors rework and DLC. And then 5 months. Did you say? How long was it? August, and then Chaos Dwarfs came out. When is August for
so March,
6 or
wouldn't
7 months.
what's for that one? Forge of Chaos Dwarves, April. Oh yeah, so that's like what 8 goddamn months between there, and then
Yeah.
it's 5 months for the next thing. And it's like, how could you only do this in 5 months though compared to the rest?
If it was 5 months between content, but the patch cycle was like just hot, it was just on it like every month, even. Like just a patch fixing some things would go a long way. There's just nothing.
Yeah,
That
we'll
one
see
between,
what Thrones of Decay comes out with.
Yeah, I've got big hopes for Thrones of Decay. I really that they better overhaul Kugas tech tree, because the Nurgle tech tree is genuinely horrendous.
Yeah, let's just go over the worst and best case scenarios, right? For everything around this.
Mm-hmm.
I think best case scenarios is that they really managed to nail down a new Nurgle mechanic. Because I think that the Nurgle mechanic right now is kind of okay, but I can't really see how that one is going to be okay. So they need severe reworking, or just scrapped and made like something new will come out of it instead. So that settlements grow over time or something. Instead of you just having to build them and do cyclical buildings and stuff like that. And you know, like a really substantial overhaul, together with like cool stuff for the Empire. Empire also needs a rework. Everybody loves Empire, and they should just do more Empire stuff to print money.
Mm-hmm.
Like not for 20 now, man. I can't even say that anymore because yeah, we're always gonna want to pay $25 for just Empire. But you know, they should just do better for Empire as well, because that mechanic that they have is subpar at best and always been subpar. Like SFO, no, not SFO. It was what was that Empire mechanic called? Machinations of the Empire or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it just did it so much better. You just could do trade agreements, and you could do like a ton of stuff, and you can actually use all the resources, because after a while you just sit around there and just hoard authority and prestige and stuff like that, and you don't use it at all. But like, it just needs rework as well. Best case scenario, they managed to really rework that. The Empire,
Yeah, I think
Nurgle.
I think the faction updates are really where they need to pay a bit more attention, because they're kind of like they advertised it as faction updates. This isn't us, you know, getting too over ambitious on what they say they're going to release. They say old world updates, reworks, and we got like a new mechanic for Cathay. Well, not a new mechanic, a slightly changed mechanic for Cathay, and not much else. They really need to make sure that they deliver on that, as well as an absolute banger series of new lords.
That's the best case scenario, and the worst case scenario is that they hardly do any rework, and they do another shadow change. Yeah.
If I see any techs in Nurgle's tech tree that look like they're aimed at the Realm of Chaos campaign, I will lose my shit.
The UI for the tech trees is still awful, so awful.
Mm.
I'm assuming we're all in agreement that the price is not going to go down.
I would be incredibly surprised.
Yep.
Same, but I do hope that the content will match the price instead. That's the only thing I can hope for.
Yeah, that is the only way forward for them, because if they reduce the price, then it just cements that Shadows of Change. I mean, everyone already knows that Shadows of Change is far too expensive, but if they admit it themselves, then it's like, good luck. But if they're going to keep the price the same, it needs to justify it. It's just like simple maths. Like, old content cost £8, and you got this much. You got 2 lords, new mechanics, new units, whatever. New DLC costs £20. So like, it needs to have the same price to content ratio. Like, I think 4 lords per pack it's just too much. I think they should just go back to 2 lords and make it £10, because you're still getting like a little increase in your price there, like £2 increase for your lord packs. But it's still a micro transaction. £20 is it's too expensive for me personally for a DLC. And
Yeah,
you're not going to do 4 lords, and 3 lords isn't enough.
I think they were trying to bring the Lord packs up to the race packs. They were trying to bring them together. Because obviously you had 3 lords for the Chaos Dwarves. Feels like the 3 lords for the Lord pack, they're trying to like...
Yeah, they're trying to make it all as if it's all the same value.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious when the Chaos Dwarves was cheaper. And I said it was still too expensive.
Yeah. I think had they charged 15 quid for it with 3 lords, I think they probably would have got away with it.
Yeah, probably.
Quid.
It would still have been
yeah,
too
£5
expensive.
per lord to me it's expensive, yes, but I think that is something that a lot of people would probably just roll over and be like, whatever.
But that wasn't all we paid for, though. We paid for reworks. We paid for a free Sea Lord as well. It was all in the unspoken agreement with CA that other people would be able to play it. Other people would come in and play it as well. Like people who didn't have money would be able to, well, not that much money anyway, would be able to, play something at least. They would always have a free new campaign. They would have some rework, and it would be something cool at least, so that everybody got something. We paid for that as well, so that everybody got something, and that was the unspoken agreements. But now, even at 15 pounds, it would still be like, oh, we're not getting as much as we used to. It would still be shrinkflation.
Yeah, the Frail Sea Lord thing really pisses me off so badly. Like, especially when we're talking about Dryka, she was admittedly, yes, you did technically need to pay for her, because if you had the DLC already, then you would be paying for her, but like it was still kind of Frail Sea, and just losing that Frail Sea Lord, they are then added to the DLC, and then the price is then over doubled. It's just like, so we're not only paying more for content, even though you say it's more content, we're actually just paying double the price for one less Lord if you actually like do the maths and work out like the content per price ratio. Like 2 less Lords. It's just,
I think it's also quite
really
galling that Immortal Empires is a janky mess at times.
At times? At all times.
Yeah, I mean, the bug that pissed me off quite recently was I was playing a Norsca campaign. Fred, chill. But I maxed out one of the gods, so I had the 2 alternate lords spawn, and they start making their way towards you. So 2 stacks spawn and basically start. The idea is you kill those 2 stacks, and there's a quest battle that you need to complete afterwards. I fought a battle, and the quests for killing those 2 lords completed, and I couldn't work out why. And the reason is because both those quests had the objective of eliminate any lord. So you didn't need to kill that specific lord. You just had to kill anyone. Didn't matter. And that quest completed for some reason. And that kind of pissed me off more than the fact that monster hunting broke.
Well, you are called monster bound, so you're just trying to, chillax against your other monsters.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it just comes down to Immortal Empires is janky. They're charging more for it. It just seems like a mess.
Indeed. Speaking of messes,
yeah,
did anyone play Hyenas at all? Just out of interest.
No.
To be fair, it is the most okay game of all time. That is.
I had a key for it, but I never really tried this.
I played like 2 matches with my friends, and I was like, it doesn't make sense in the current gaming climate, I suppose. But it's like it's like 5 out of 10. It's just nothing. It will come out to thunderous silence, is my guess. But anyway, that is a completely tangent. I think we've rambled on for long enough. Do you agree?
I'll do.
Maybe.
I mean,
we've touched on all the points.
Yeah, we could grumble all night, but so look into the next month. Well, there's not really much happening in the next month, Total War wise. I suppose Total War Pharaoh will have launched, so that'll be nice.
That will have launched.
Yeah, we'll talk
and
about
you
that.
will be thrilled by that, no doubt.
Absolutely, I can't wait.
We also have been promised to have like Thrones Decay this year. So hopefully within a month we'll have a announcement.
That'd be good.
Confirmation.
Possibly.
Anything, please. So yes, yeah. Thanks, guys, for the chat. It's been good. Thank you.
Thank you
to anyone that has actually made it this far. You're a champ. You know, I nearly fell asleep there myself, but we made it through. We can do it.
You'll edit this down, right?
Now this is just going out raw, just like this.
No.
That's how we do it.
Raw.
We go raw online.
Unadulterated.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave in all the bits where monsters said slurs. And I was like, oh, can't say that.
I think I'll get cancelled again.
Oh no. Right. That's a wrap. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye.